All right, you're dialing in for a deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're someone who keeps an eye on your blood sugar, you know the drill, right?
Yeah.
It often feels like the whole conversation is just about two things: what
Okay.
you eat and how much you move.
Diet and exercise, they're definitely the heavy hitters. Foundational, no doubt. They play these massive roles in your glucose levels.
But here's the thing we want to unpack today. You're doing everything right. Like, you're absolutely nailing it,
Uh-huh.
making smart food choices, staying active, following the
Doing
plan.
all the right stuff.
Exactly. And yet you look at your meter and see a number that just, well, it doesn't make sense. An unexpected high.
Yeah.
It's confusing, maybe a little frustrating even. And you're thinking, okay, if I'm doing the big two correctly, what else is going on here?
And that feeling,
Yeah.
it's super common.
Mhm.
It really points to a crucial truth. Blood sugar regulation is, well, it's complex, way more complex than just calories and activity.
Mm-hmm.
Your body's internal state, other external factors, they play a really significant role.
Precisely. And that's why we're going to dig into an article today. It's from Eating Well, titled "5 Sneaky Reasons Your Blood Sugar is High."
Good one.
And it goes beyond the usual suspects, beyond the plate and the pavement, to look at some of these other, maybe less obvious culprits.
It's such a valuable perspective because it highlights just how interconnected everything is in our bodies, how things that seem unrelated can, ripple through and actually impact your glucose metabolism.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We're going to zero in on the key insights from this article.
Okay.
We'll identify those 5 sneaky reasons it talks about, try to understand the biology behind why they affect blood sugar based on what the source said.
The mechanisms, yeah.
And crucially, look at what the article suggests you can actually do about them. So this is like your custom guide to pull out the most important bits from this specific source.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Okay, first reason the article flags for those unexpected highs: being sick or stressed. Now, we all know being sick feels lousy, but how does that specifically bump up blood sugar?
So the article explains that illness basically triggers a stress response in your body.
Okay.
And that response leads to hormones being released, especially cortisol. You can think of cortisol as part of your fight or flight system. It's getting you ready for action.
Like the body's internal alarm bell going off.
Exactly. And according to the source, cortisol plus these other inflammatory things like cytokines, they send signals straight to your liver.
Uh-huh.
And those signals tell the liver, okay, time to release sugar. It does that through two processes: glycogenolysis and gluconeogenesis.
Whoa, okay. Let's break those down a bit. What are they actually doing?
Okay, so glycogenolysis, that's your liver breaking down the glucose it has stored up, its glycogen, and just releasing that sugar into your blood.
Got it. Stored sugar out.
Right. And then gluconeogenesis is, well, it's even wilder. That's your liver actually making new glucose from stuff that isn't carbs, like amino acids or fats.
So your body thinks there's a threat, the illness or the stress, and it's like, we need energy and no W.
Mm-hmm.
And the liver starts pumping out sugar it already had and making new sugar, even if you haven't eaten anything sugary.
That's the core mechanism the article describes. It's this evolutionary survival thing designed to give you fuel fast. But, when you're trying to manage blood sugar, it just leads straight to higher levels.
Wow, that's a powerful internal drive. Okay, so given that, what does the article suggest you do when you get sick or hit a really stressful patch? Because, let's be honest, focusing on perfect eating might be the last thing on your mind.
Totally. The source really emphasizes having a plan before you get sick.
Ah, proactive.
Yeah. Knowing how you'll maybe check your blood sugar more often, because you're likely going to see some swings. It also advises being mindful of nutrition, not necessarily cutting carbs totally, but aiming for moderate amounts, being strategic.
And did they mention specific types of carbs to be careful with?
They did. The article specifically flags being cautious with liquid carbs.
Like juice.
Exactly. Juice, soda, those really sugary coffee drinks. They can cause super rapid, significant spikes because they get absorbed so quickly, especially when your system's already kind of fragile from being sick.
Makes sense.
And probably the most critical piece of advice, stay in close touch with your medical team. Let them know if you're seeing big, sustained changes.
That's really solid advice. Be prepared, watch the fast carbs, and communicate. Okay, that makes sense. The stress response overriding things. Let's shift gears. Sneaky reason number 2 from the article: dehydration. How does just not drinking enough water mess with blood sugar?
This one catches people off guard sometimes, I think. We don't always connect hydration and metabolism directly.
Hmm.
But the article explains it pretty clearly. When your body's low on water, the fluids you do have become more concentrated.
Concentrated with everything.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Concentrated with everything dissolved in them, and that includes glucose. So picture it.
Yeah.
You have a certain amount of glucose floating around in your bloodstream. If the total volume of liquid, the blood plasma, goes down because you're dehydrated, the glucose itself hasn't gone anywhere. So its concentration just goes up.
Ah, okay. Like if you dissolve the same spoonful of sugar in half a glass of water versus a full glass,
Exact.
the half glass tastes way sweeter because it's more concentrated.
That's a perfect analogy. The article talks about the body trying to compensate for a fluid imbalance, but the practical result is just higher blood sugar readings on your meter, less fluid to dilute the glucose that's there.
So the fix seems obvious. Drink more water.
Well, yes,
Okay.
but the article frames it more as making hydration a consistent daily habit, not just playing catch-up.
Right.
It suggests simple checks, like looking at your urine color, aiming for that light yellow, pale straw color is a good sign you're hydrated.
That's a super simple, actionable tip. Love that.
It is. And for a more concrete target, the article gives a general guideline, about 1 ounce of fluid per kilogram of body weight. It uses an example. A 160-pound person needs around 9 cups a day. That's roughly, 72.7 kilos, needing about 2.2 liters. Gives you something to aim for.
Having a specific goal helps.
Definitely. And setting reminders can work, or making water more interesting, adding herbs, citrus, maybe drinking herbal teas. Just practical ways to get it in, according to the source.
Got it. So basic hydration is key. And the article shows it directly impacts glucose concentration. Okay, number 3, medications. This feels like it could be a big one.
Oh, it absolutely can be. The article points out that several really common types of meds, ones prescribed for totally different issues, can unintentionally affect blood sugar.
Like what?
It specifically calls out steroids, certain mood stabilizers, statins, for cholesterol and diuretics.
Steroids. Does that tie back to the stress and cortisol thing we talked about earlier?
That's a really sharp connection. The article doesn't explicitly link them in this section, but yes, steroids are powerful hormones, and the source notes they can directly mess with how your pancreas secretes insulin. So if insulin isn't working as well, glucose doesn't get cleared from the blood effectively.
Okay, that makes sense. What about something like a diuretic? Often used for blood pressure, right? How does that affect sugar?
Right. So the article explains that diuretics work by making you pee more, basically, helping the body shed excess fluid.
Okay. Wait, that sounds familiar.
Exactly. It ties right back to dehydration. As you lose more fluid from your bloodstream, the glucose left behind gets more concentrated, bam, higher readings.
So it's like intentional medication-induced dehydration in a way. Less fluid, same sugar, higher concentration.
You got it. The source mentions different mechanisms. Some drugs affect insulin, others fluid balance. Some might even impact how much glucose your liver makes. It's complex.
So what's the advice if you're taking medication?
The article is really clear. This is a conversation for you and your healthcare provider. Your doctor should be aware of meds that can raise blood glucose and think about alternatives if possible. And for you as the patient, the advice is feel empowered to ask, could this med affect my blood sugar? What should I watch out for? When should I call you if I see weird numbers?
That proactive approach again. It's so important. Don't just assume a high reading is only about food or exercise. Meds are a huge potential factor.
Absolutely, a crucial conversation to have.
Okay, definitely. Let's move on to number 4, hormones. We touched on cortisol with stress, but what other hormones does the article mention as potential blood sugar influencers?
Yeah, beyond cortisol, the source lists several other key players in regulating glucose. Glucagon, amylin, epinephrine, which is adrenaline and growth hormone.
Okay.
These hormones often work in balance or sometimes opposite to insulin. They influence how the liver handles glucose storing or releasing it, and also how sensitive your body's cells are to insulin's message.
So they're all part of the body's internal command center for glucose.
That's a good way to put it. And the article highlights specific times or cycles where these hormonal shifts can really impact blood sugar control.
Like what?
It notes how women with type 1 diabetes often see changes in their glucose levels throughout their menstrual cycle.
Ah, that's a very regular, predictable hormonal fluctuation affecting things.
Exactly. And probably even more widely known, the article brings up pregnancy.
Right.
Hormones produced by the placenta can actually interfere with the mother's insulin, leading to higher blood sugars. That's why as the source mentions, routine blood sugar checks are standard in prenatal care.
It really drives home how natural body cycles, not just outside factors, can change the glucose picture. So, what's the advice here, according to the article?
For managing blood sugar during these specific times of hormonal change, like pregnancy or even navigating cycles, the article recommends working closely with a registered dietitian or another qualified healthcare provider.
Okay.
They can give you tailored advice on nutrition, maybe medication adjustments if needed, to work with those hormonal changes.
Makes sense. Recognize the natural shifts and get expert help. Okay, final one. The fifth sneaky reason from the article, lack of sleep. This one might feel the most disconnected for some people. How does being tired actually make your blood sugar go up?
Yeah, it's not always obvious, but the article really stresses that sleep isn't a luxury, it's a fundamental biological need.
Okay.
And when you consistently don't get enough, it messes with multiple body systems. One key impact it highlights: insulin sensitivity.
Tell me more about that connection.
So the source explains that when you're sleep deprived, your cells become less responsive to insulin. Your pancreas might still be churning out insulin, but the cells in your muscles, fat, liver, the ones that are supposed to grab glucose from the blood, they don't react as well to insulin's signal telling them to open the door.
So the glucose just kind of gets stuck hanging around in the bloodstream longer.
Exactly. It leads to the state of, like, temporary insulin resistance. The result is higher blood sugar levels. It's a really clear link between a basic function like sleep and your metabolic health.
That's a powerful connection, for sure. What does the article suggest for actually improving sleep? Seems important.
Yeah, the advice centers on good sleep hygiene. Basic stuff, but important.
Mm.
If poor sleep is a chronic thing, the article suggests talking to your doctor, maybe even a sleep study, to rule out underlying issues like apnea.
Okay.
But for general improvement, things like having a relaxing wind-down routine before bed, making sure your bedroom is cool, dark, quiet, cutting down on screens and blue light near bedtime.
Simple habits, but they could have a real downstream effect on blood sugar.
They really can. The article emphasizes that working on sleep isn't just about feeling less tired, though that's great. It's also an active step in supporting your body's metabolism and helping your insulin work better.
Okay, let's recap then. We've kind of peeled back the layers on this eating well article and found these 5 often sneaky reasons for high blood sugar, even if your diet and exercise seem perfect. We saw how being sick or stressed makes the liver pump out extra gluconeogenesis, right?
Making new sugar.
How dehydration just concentrates the sugar already in your blood. How meds like steroids or diuretics can mess with insulin or fluid levels. How natural hormonal shifts like menstrual cycles or pregnancy change the whole glucose regulation game.
Definitely.
And finally, how just not getting enough sleep can make your cells resistant to insulin.
And understanding these less obvious factors, like we've explored from this source material, it adds such crucial context,
Yeah.
It helps explain those frustrating highs that don't seem to make sense based only on food and movement. It moves the conversation forward.
And the article's big takeaway message seems to be about partnership with your healthcare team.
Absolutely.
It really advises connecting with your primary care provider if you're seeing trends or symptoms that worry you, especially if you think one of these sneaky reasons might be involved. These are complex things. Guidance is key.
It really is. It kind of invites you to think a bit differently. It's tempting to see blood sugar as just this direct result of what you ate an hour ago. But when you reflect on what we've pulled from this article, how your stress, your hydration, your meds, your hormones, even your sleep quality, how all these seemingly separate things are actually tangled together and quietly nudging those blood sugar numbers, well, what does that interconnectedness mean for how you approach your overall well-being? It's not just about chasing a number, is it? It's about understanding this whole integrated system that is you.